If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and you are listening to the Maura Murray series. This is episode 79. Die, expletive, die. This is a note found in the Franconia area. I don't believe it has been discussed much in the Maura Murray case. Is it related to the Maura Murray case? Are there other boyfriend issues? Did Maura Murray have another boyfriend? Is this note more likely to be written by a possible boyfriend, significant other, or male, or possibly a former track team member that admitted to possibly driving by the staged accident scene the night in question? There are a lot of personalities in this case. This is one of the most bizarre missing persons true crime cases ever, with an even stranger so-called online community of individuals, many of which seem to belong to a DC circle of dubious individuals intentionally narrative steering for some kind of purpose to either deflect or steer away from the real truth, or just possibly a whole new level of psychotics that are just drawn to this particular missing persons case for some reason. And they all have connections to the DC area. They all have inserted themselves in the case. I mean, everything from donating computers to Helena Murray, who was so-called in charge of the Maura Murray investigation for many, many years. Who knows what kind of spyware or surveillance software was loaded on that computer, so-called donated by the one and only Scott Wall, who himself has had some criminal history involving child exploitation imagery and such on his own computer, which he blamed on his young son, even though they were meticulously labeled and subcategorized of various different pornography. I mean, this is just really, really out there. You can't make this stuff up. This case is a coincidence theorist's dream case, because there's more coincidences in this case. I mean, the stack is so high. I mean, we have a Tower of Babel of coincidences built here, just stretching up to near infinity. And the coincidence theorists still maintain they're all coincidences. I mean, it's just straight up ludicrous at this point. But on Mindshock, we will logically examine all these connections, all these theories, in typical Mindshock fashion, with logic and reason at the forefront, not falling for logical fallacies. As always, if you enjoy the podcast, find it interesting, want to help support the Mindshock podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube for access to exclusive streams and chats. Like and share the podcast. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority, case, topological analysis, co-podcast requests. You can also be a guest on the podcast, depending on your tier. Awareness is how cold cases and missing persons cases get solved. So let's keep up the awareness in a logical fashion, because that is the Mindshock way, where the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. We don't pretend or hallucinate to know that Maura Murray even left the UMass area, because how could we know that, especially when silent UMass has just kept all of the CCTV under wraps. We don't even know if the Saturn was on campus that weekend or for many weekends prior. We have no idea. I mean, there are a lot of goofs out there that pretend and hallucinate, but this is not evidence. These are not facts. It's also amazing how many clueless goofs out there don't even know the definition of the word fact, of the word assumption. I mean, it's just truly bizarre. But let's jump right in here into this mysterious note, of which there is so little information. I don't know if John Smith broke this news, but it was talked about years ago on various forums and subreddits, but nobody's really talking about it today, perhaps because there's no admitted link to the Maura Murray case. So there's no official link to the Maura Murray case. I mean, I don't know how many times I have to say that, but no doubt a lot of the clueless goofs, trolls, and narrative stirrers will come out of the woodwork to just profess it definitely has nothing to do with the Maura Murray case. I mean, how would they know either way? But, of course, that is the nature of coincidence theorists. So, basically, John Smith with the name Magic Drone that he used to go by. He stated this note was found in 2012, so roughly 8 years after the disappearance. It was found by a Franconia police officer. The contents of the note were not made public, but apparently it states die, expletive die, and possibly other things, but that is, of course, all speculation. Now, looking at the map here, I mean, Franconia, I mean, it's not stated where in Franconia. So we have Franconia Notch State Park, which is a lot closer than the town of Franconia near Sugar Hill. There's the Cannon Mountain Ski Resort in that area as well. There's Mount Lafayette. There's, this is all mountainous terrain here, a bit of a distance from the accident scene. Now, I do also want to mention the black backpack that was found in Pemigewasset Overlook. This overlook is roughly 30 miles from the town of Franconia, approximately a third of the distance to Franconia Notch State Park. And it's also not that close from the so-called accident scene, the staged accident scene. It's amazing how many goofs still maintain that the scene was not staged. I mean, maybe it wasn't, but multiple independent accident reconstruction experts concluded that it was staged, which is why the New Hampshire League of Investigators also stated it was staged. I mean, that was one of the few things they agreed on, just because of all of the different accident reconstruction experts that concluded that it was staged. So this is something that's ignored by the coincidence theorists who want to just pretend and hallucinate. It was definitely Maura Murray at the scene, and they just put all of this blind faith and religious worship into the words of the least objective party, Butch Atwood. I mean, out of all the individuals in the area, out of all the individuals in the Maura Murray case, I mean, who are the least objective? Probably Butch Atwood, and then in second place, perhaps Billy Rausch, Aaron Larkin, some of the people connected. But Butch Atwood, theoretically, if he truly is the last known person to see her alive, that makes him the least objective party. And he himself stated that the driver did not look like the individual whose pictures he was shown. Now, that could be because hair was up, hair was down, disheveled, possible airbag situation. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different reasons, but what remains is that he's the least objective party. Now, the more objective parties, the Westmans, who also not completely objective, but they stated, of course, which is in the transcript, man smoking a cigarette. Butch Atwood himself, as stated in the transcript, he hit a pine tree. Now, obviously, this is 2022 now. So there are a lot of goofs out there that are confused, but just to keep it simple, at least in 2004, he means male. He means man. So unless all these steers and goofs are trying to say that the dispatcher, Rhonda Marsh, she's just that incompetent, but I mean, she's objective, unless they're also maintaining that some kind of conspiracy or fix was in before the 911 calls. And if that were so, why would Marsh be part of the conspiracy? And if she is part of the conspiracy, wouldn't she be in on it to make it seem like Maura was there and not a man? So not all of the most objective information we have point to a male at the scene. So there is no evidence, there's no conclusive evidence, I mean, by any stretch of the imagination, that Maura Murray was at the accident scene. I actually can't believe how many people are still commenting about that. Supposedly, I mean, they're commenting on the newer episodes of the Mindshock podcast, and they supposedly state they listened to the previous episodes. I mean, I did an entire episode on whether or not Maura was the driver, where I went over all of this in extensive detail. And again, just logic 101. The burden of proof is on positive claims. If someone is claiming Maura Murray was at a particular location, it's up to them to prove that she was. Not everyone else to just assume and hallucinate with them that it's already a proven fact when it is not. Either way, the black backpack at Pemigewasset Overlook, some people believe that was Maura Murray's. And I went over that in previous episodes. I'm not going to go too deep into that because this isn't really about that right now. Some people still believe that it was connected to Maura Murray just because of all of the shadiness, or for some people that think it's not shadiness, simple broken telephone, and then also authorities not wanting to divulge or state anything clearly in the Maura Murray case. Obviously, in other cases, this isn't a problem, but in the Maura Murray case, everything's a problem. Okay, so again, it was not stated to be connected to the Maura Murray case. So there's a couple different reasons for this. Now, if it's not connected to the Maura Murray case and they, for whatever reason, want to protect whatever case it is connected to, then maybe they could just not want to comment on it at all. But if it's just a random note that's not connected to anything, why would they? I mean, in many other cases, they just say there's no evidence that it is connected. So they're not necessarily making a legal statement stating it's not connected, but they at least come out and say we have no reason to believe that it is connected at this time, something that legally wouldn't compromise a case, not just ignore all existence. So that part is kind of weird. So, and if they do know it is related, obviously they would never admit that, because if they are building some kind of criminal case, they wouldn't admit it. So it's weird. It's very, very weird. Now, the other connection here to Franconia is, of course, Officer Pepper, Bruce McKay. So Officer Pepper, known for pepper spraying old ladies and anyone and everyone, basically, if there's some kind of connection there, would there be evidence? Would there be notes? Some people believe still, I mean, I don't think this is the majority by any stretch of the imagination. Some people believe that McKay needs to be more thoroughly investigated. And I'll probably end up doing an episode on him because supposedly he's cruising around Haverhill at that time for some reason. And his whereabouts are unaccounted for. Now, a guy like that who's involved in all this other shady business, if he's routinely involved in shady business, and his whereabouts can routinely never be verified because he's involved in shady business, then why would he not be involved in shady business on February 9, 2004? I mean, that would be just, if his standard practice is to be involved in shady business, similar to Jeff Williams, the police chief who drives around drunk, if that's routine for those guys, then it might not be related to Maura Murray. We have to keep that in mind. Just because there's all this shady business going on, that doesn't mean it's related to Maura Murray, particularly if Maura Murray's not even in the area. If whatever happened to her happened in the UMass area, which just objectively, looking at it logically, there's no reason to believe that Maura Murray was up there without evidence. If we're being logical, we need actual evidence, not falling for burden of proof logical fallacies, where the burden of proof is shifted to try to state that it needs to be proven that she wasn't there. One is not called upon to prove a negative. I mean, this is logic 101. Otherwise, we should all believe that there's an invisible flying spaghetti monster that we need to pay extra taxes to because we can't prove it doesn't exist. I mean, that's the kind of silliness that narrative steers and authority-worshipping cultists maintain. They just have a certain religious reverence for official narratives on the idiot box or whatever is stated in an official capacity. So, okay, let's look at more information here, which there's really not much. Now, Magic Drone, aka John Smith, stated that Maura's name was not on the note. So basically, it says die, expletive, die, and possibly other contents. Somehow, John Smith has stated that it did not have Maura's name on it. So what does that mean? So, I mean, all we can really take away from this note is that it was logged by police. So John Smith apparently got this from a police log. So it was logged. Now, what it's in connection to, that we don't know. But it's not simply a rumor and it doesn't actually exist. Coincidence theorists always like to pretend that things don't even exist in the first place. I mean, just going back on the history of the steerers and obfuscators throughout the years and years, they always like to pretend and hallucinate that everything that John Smith or James Renner posted was just made up nonsense, where they've both been vindicated at every turn with official police reports verifying everything they reported. So yeah, it's really weird because if it is related, I mean, that's a little weird. Is it more likely to have been written by a male or female if they were trying to harm Maura Murray? And that's kind of what we're going to go into next. So I did an episode on The Other Boyfriend. If you haven't checked that out on the Mindshock podcast, make sure you check that out. So there's, of course, the Susan Champy rumors from Loon Mountain that she worked at Loon Mountain. There was some other worker there. His girlfriend, apparently, he was going out with Maura Murray, and apparently his previous girlfriend had gone missing or something also. I mean, there's a lot of unverified claims from the rumor mill at Loon Mountain. So here's the problem, and I've gone over the Loon Mountain 3 as well in the Maura Murray case. Make sure you check out the previous episodes. Do not start with this episode. So a lot of cases, obviously a lot of true crime cases, some of the rumors turn out to be true. Now, obviously not all of the rumors. Obviously there's many mutually exclusive rumors, so they can't all be true. I mean, I think it's rare in cases where 100% of rumors are all false. Because, I mean, locals would hear some local chatter, so some of it might be true, whether from police officers or just whomever. So is the theory that Maura Murray did in fact have another boyfriend, is that true? Now, we're going to look at what some of the Mindshock listeners have stated on the Maura Murray Mindshock subreddit, the only subreddit that is not a complete sham regarding the Maura Murray case, because obviously Reddit, highly controlled environment by the steerers and the obfuscators. So they picked out a few very interesting things. So in James Renner's book, page 115, a few months before she really did disappear, he, Haas, Hussein Baghdadi, the assistant track coach, met Maura for lunch. Quote, "That was the last time I saw her. I thought we could at least be friends," end quote. So supposedly, so here's the thing about Hussein Baghdadi. He might warrant an entire episode by himself too. There's a lot of shady issues with Baghdadi. So here's the thing regarding this, and I actually didn't point this, I didn't notice this. A few months before, so what is that, 2, 3, 4 months? Supposedly, they had, while she was having a break with Bill Roush or whatever, the previous year, that's when they dated. So now, since then, so they're not currently dating, but she did meet with him a few months prior, so how many months though? 2, 3, 4? So would that put the meeting in December, November, October? When did they officially go out though? So the timeline's a little sketchy here, because if she's on break, how long was she on break with Bill Roush for? Because they have this relationship in the spring. Was it also into the summer? I don't know if there's ever been exact dates given, but after basically they're no longer together, they go out for lunch again? Or was this the last lunch where she broke up with him and told him she was getting back with Bill Roush? I mean, and are these overlapping timelines? I mean, we really don't know any of this information. But he stated it was the last time he saw her a few months before. Supposedly, they only had a brief relationship the year before, that previous spring, possibly part of summer. I mean, but then she's meeting him again at some point in the fall? And is he intentionally misremembering and stating a few months before? Was it really a few weeks before that he met her? Or did he just get his time? Maybe it was a month and a half. Is it possible it was somewhere January, December? I mean, and if so, why did she want to meet with him again? But again, these astute researchers on the Maura Murray subreddit also pulled this out, because I also did not notice this exactly. So from Maura's email to her friends, this is January 29, 2004. We went over this email in the past, but there's one word here that I didn't pick up on. "Are you ready for this? Dane Cook is playing at UMass, and we went to get tickets, but it was sold out. I missed out again. But I did some research, and he plays in Storrs, Connecticut, February 12th, not too far from UMass Worcester, Providence." So, okay, we did discuss the Dane Cook concert and her plans, because, I mean, there's a lot of people who still believe the suicide theory. This was kind of put in how she's excited for things, whatever. Again, I think out of all the available information, the suicide theory is probably the least likely, even if she was planning to commit suicide. Because let's say she was. There are a lot of goofs out there that hallucinate that people who are suicidal or alcoholics or drug addicts, somehow there's a Dungeons and Dragons magical protection spell that protects them from being harmed by any predators, protects them from being involved in any accidents with other individuals that might have wanted to cover up the accident. I mean, this level of goofery is just so insane. And yet it's in the true crime community and so-called true crime aficionados, they countlessly cling desperately to these fallacies where it's just hallucinating that people who are suicidal or drug addicts or whatever, that there is some kind of magical protection spell in the universe that would make them impervious to being harmed by other humans. It's just really weird. I never got it, never understood it, but it's so prevalent. So even if she was suicidal, I mean, why would UMass just not release all this footage? Why would the liquor store footage still not be released? Why would the photos from the accident scene not be released? So again, even if she's suicidal, nothing adds up anyway with all of these other agencies, etc., etc. So the key word here is we went to get tickets. So who's we? Is that her and Bill Rausch? Is that her and Kate Markopoulos? Is that her and the other boyfriend? I mean, who is we? And another further point that probably doesn't get enough discussion, if we go back to the map, Franconia, so between Franconia Notch, Bethlehem is really not that far from Franconia. Now, who remembers why Bethlehem is relevant? Bethlehem is where the UMass Outing Club cabin is located that Haas knew about because apparently he goes fly fishing in the general area. He's familiar with the White Mountains as well. So it's, and we went over this on previous episodes as well, is it possible, if there is a cabin in Bethlehem connection, Haas knows about it, now we add into the mix this possible expletive die note between Franconia and Franconia Notch, which just happens to be in the general vicinity of Bethlehem, the cabin. I don't know what to make all that. It's possible it's all coincidental and not related. It is possible. I don't think it's possible the entire mountain, our Tower of Babel of coincidences, is all unrelated, but some of them could clearly, just statistically, not everything can be related to everything. So it's possible some things are coincidental. Now, which things are they? I mean, that's difficult to know because, I mean, the case is unsolved. Once the case is definitively solved, hindsight will be 20/20, and we can go back and look on what is definitively related or not related. Alright, so going back to the subreddit here and the we went to get tickets, who was with Maura to get those tickets? Because we're talking 1 to 2 weeks before 2 weeks before she disappears forever, or less than 2 weeks before she disappears forever. So you would think an honest, thorough, competent investigation would know her movements in the days leading up to her disappearance. Now, here are a couple of posts here I'm going to go over. Why hasn't it been known who went with her? Either her friends were quiet about any new boyfriend guys, or quiet if they told law enforcement that Billy Rausch was in town over that weekend into Monday, February 9th. Now, I went over this in the previous episodes regarding Billy Rausch's unaccounted for whereabouts. Now, the goofs hallucinate he has an airtight alibi, but clearly he does not. Clearly he has a history of leaving base without permission, even to go to England and see a potential girlfriend. So, and that he actually bragged about in an interview. So, sort of bragged, openly admitted, and chuckled about. So, yeah, it's clearly he might possibly have made a short trip if people covered for him. If he's part of the good old boys in the military and he was just chummy with certain individuals that covered for him and whatever the case may be, again, you would think in 2004 they do have security at the base, security footage. So it could and the airports. So it could clearly be verified. Billy Rausch's movements, which airport he was at, when, etc., etc. Now, did certain things slip through, like the newspaper articles we went over, that he had to go back to New Hampshire? So was he already there, New Hampshire, UMass, or Massachusetts rather? He back to Massachusetts, UMass area? So does that imply he was already there? So, yeah, I mean, was he even around during that mysterious party that no one seems to remember anything about? Or did he have a buddy that was there keeping an eye on the situation and Maura Murray? But continuing on with the post here, I've stated before, if true, it puts Billy Roush in New England before he claimed to the public. But law enforcement may know he was already there, which puts him in their crosshairs right away. Billy Roush also stated he never personally met with his superiors and did it on the phone, making it anywhere in the U.S. The state's prosecutor in Fred Murray's court case said that if any info leaked, it would put emphasis on the ones, plural, who the community knows that they were focused on as possible suspects. Was that Billy Roush and his mother? Or other individuals, who knows? It would be interesting to know if she ever did get tickets for the February 12th show. If she indeed did, I assume someone would have been going with her to Storrs, Connecticut, and plans made, travel, possible overnight accommodations, etc. It could be another reason to think Billy Roush might have been in New England prior to Wednesday, the 11th. Perhaps he became aware that Maura was going to a show in Storrs, Connecticut with someone and wanted to know who that might be if she was keeping that a secret from him. He and Sharon had access to Maura's phone records and voicemails. I wouldn't put it past him to have access to her emails too. Remember that supervisor Karen said that Sharon contacted her early on via email, but that she couldn't recall if it was her work or personal email. Nobody seems to be able to recall anything. I mean, and how hard is it to verify this information? I mean, it's so bizarre how you have all these other missing persons cases where supposedly it's not really a problem to verify anything. And then you have the Maura Murray case where it's a problem to verify anything at all, even the most mundane, seemingly unrelated things. I mean, it is truly, truly a unique case. Now, the thing that's kind of weird, though, it seems like her high school friends were more her real friends, possibly, than her UMass friends, or acquaintances, coworkers, whatever, Sarah, Kate Markopoulos, whoever. Would they cover for Billy Roush? I mean, that's another curiosity. Or is there a gag order in place? Because if the FBI talked to people at UMass, possibly even her hometown in Massachusetts, I mean, or whoever, regular police, doesn't matter. Is there a gag order? And that's why nobody can talk about Bill Roush. So the friends aren't necessarily covering for Bill Roush, which seems unlikely, because if they're more as real friends, I mean, why would they cover for Bill Roush? But if there was a gag order and police told them it might compromise Billy Roush's prosecution in any way, I mean, that could be something. Who knows? And again, that doesn't mean he was directly involved in anything. Because if he had a friend or whoever, possibly in UMPD as well, from West Point, whatever, is it possible that that friend did something? Is it possible that friend did something that Billy Roush didn't want him to do? Is Billy Roush not really that bad of a guy? Is he the type of guy that would only go to the lengths of keeping tabs on a girlfriend or ex-girlfriend, but not want her harmed? And the person that he trusted to keep tabs, they're a psychopath, and they harmed Maura Murray, and it was not the wishes of Bill Roush to do so. Either way, if there was a gag order in place, Billy Roush would still be involved in that whole thing, so the gag order could still be in play, even if Billy Roush is not the one to harm her. And also, if Billy Roush is the good guy, which, again, I've gone over this a lot, if he's the good guy and Maura Murray was in trouble and he was trying to help her, is there a gag order because there's some kind of undercover FBI, possibly corrupt, possible U.S. Marshal witness protection involvement, whatever it is? If that's a botched witness protection operation, obviously that would never be advertised or admitted. So is that the situation we have here? And there's a gag order in place because of that, even if Bill Roush is the good guy. So there's a lot of variables here. There's a lot of possible theories here. This is Mindshock, where we don't pretend or hallucinate to know what's more or less likely when there's not enough information to make that determination. Continuing on here regarding his Billy Roush or Sharon Roush's access to Maura Murray's emails. If true, then it's entirely plausible the emails weren't from Maura on Monday the 9th and were all fabricated. Let's ponder. No email sent to UMPD. Billy Roush knew she was employed by them. If Billy Roush sent phony emails to her other jobs, did he actually avoid sending one to the campus police because he knew they would have immediately checked with Maura? I still believe the Saturn was going to be staged and Maura wasn't there. There had to be time from the crime, which was the plan. But the Saturn spinning out at the corner was not part of the plan, and it almost expletived everything up. Plus, we know that Billy Roush was aware of Kate Markopoulos' voicemail asking Maura how it went with that guy on a Sunday message. It would be easy also for Sharon to contact Kate Markopoulos if there was any info on Maura's phone or computer of her contact info. Kate Markopoulos should have been suspicious right away. Unless Kate Markopoulos knew that Billy Roush was in town and had to put it in an official police statement, one that can't see the light of day, as it would put Billy Roush into a whole new light. The court was very defensive about their info about any POIs and getting that info out to the public, as they claimed it would cause false statements and or give cause for someone to clam up or flee. Other posts here, she seems fairly nice, but Karen's interview on Tim and Lance is so strange in my opinion. In one instance, she says that in 6 months or so she worked with Maura at UMPD. They were very good friends. However, Karen said Maura never shared anything personal with her and that she only found out Maura had a boyfriend when Billy Roush's mother, Sharon, contacted her to tell her so. In the same interview, Karen says she and Maura mostly discussed hiking in the White Mountains, and that when she learned Maura was missing, her immediate thought was that Maura had gone to the White Mountains to commit suicide. WTF. What in the world possesses Karen to think that? She didn't even know why Maura was upset at work Thursday night. Why she would think suicide is beyond me unless someone told her that, or hinted at it. Or there was some kind of a narrative that all of these individuals were told to spin. As for Sharon contacting Karen, I think it was a way to try and tie up any loose ends. I think she wanted to find out what Karen knew about the Thursday night breakdown and to, of course, tell her what a great guy her son was. Sneaky. And that's it without even getting into the whole issue with the desk phone line, the whole issue that maybe Karen might have been asked to fire Maura Murray and there was no real breakdown and that was all made up after the fact. Obviously, Karen Mayott's police report could shed a lot of light on it, but of course, that's more highly classified than anything out of Area 51 at this point. I don't think it would be normal for any coworkers, acquaintances to jump to suicide with an abandoned car and or possible DWI walk away. Her response should have been that she suspected Maura was upset about something and got a way to figure things out, which may have involved alcohol, not suicide. That's quite a leap. But according to Karen Mayott, it was a UMPD officer who asked her to come in to give a statement on the Thursday evening activities. She did not volunteer herself. In a missing person, I've never heard about police getting statements from coworkers from almost a week prior. Very weird. Although we can't rule out Fred and Kathleen mentioning Maura hurting herself to Cecil. Cecil spoke to both Fred and Kathleen on Tuesday, which may have transferred to UMPD. Still, bizarre scenarios here to ponder. And also, Karen Mayott doesn't even have a consistent story. I mean, her timeline is off by many, many hours. We went over that in the past on what time she walked Maura Murray back and all of the UMPD phone desk line activities with their internal phone circuit system, their internal phone switchboard. So, yeah, that whole thing is just beyond bizarre. Again, like many things in the Maura Murray case, you just don't see this in other cases. There has to be some kind of fix that's in that covers all these agencies, because what else could explain this level of cover-up? More post here, right? And if Karen thought something as traumatic as possible suicide involving one of her employees and someone she considered a good friend, I'd have to think she would have relayed such a concern to her boss, and someone such as a UMass counselor would have seen Maura before that night was ever over. So on episode 84 of the Missing Maura Murray podcast, she said this: I think she emailed her security supervisor, like my boss, one of the nights. If true, I wonder if this is something UMPD won't make public for whatever reason, even if such an email didn't come from Maura herself. Other post, I still wonder if Karen Mayotte was asked to let Maura go from the security desk job from either Maura being ratted out about her cell phone use while at work, or if UMPD finally got word about the credit card fraud. Whatever UMPD had for a role in this, they would still need to cover their asses against any type of future lawsuits stemming from her disappearance. Karen Mayotte would still carry the guilt if she indeed had to escort Maura from her job. I mean, it follows classic protocol of someone being escorted off the premises if they were let go from that type of job. It happened exactly that way for a friend of mine, and it was just the company cutting back. Anything relative to such a job would follow exactly what Karen Mayotte did that night. Karen Mayotte said she had been told Maura was upset, but most likely another ratted her out for being on her cell with Kathleen for a half hour. Then Karen Mayotte was told to inform Maura she wasn't needed anymore, help gather her things, which she did, then escorted Maura off the property straight to her dorm, which she did. Another interesting post here, which I did not consider. Karen may not have even known that Maura was being let go that night. It might not have been her call, but her boss could have made the decision and wanted her to walk Maura out the door. Karen did say that when helping pack up Maura's belongings, she saw the cell phone in plain sight, and that she noticed someone walk through the door with an ID that indicated to her the person wasn't a UMass student and should have been checked in. I could see that that was the final straw, and UMPD deciding right then and there it was time to let her go. Okay, hold on. We need to unpack this, because there's a lot of layers here. I actually forgot about that detail. So apparently, people without proper identification, or non-students, were being let into the dorms. Now, is this connected to Domino's? Because if there was some kind of drug operation, again, Kennedy Hall just happened to be the site of the largest drug bust in UMass history. A lot of drug activity at UMass in those years. I mean, I don't know about now, but in those years. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe it's still going on now. But and pizza places were, again, I don't know if there's 100% definitive proof that that particular Domino's that Maura called after close time frequently, if that Domino's was involved in drug trafficking to college students. But at other campuses, at other colleges, pizza places were used to make drug deals. If that's going on here, and there's some kind of an issue with letting people in, and Maura is either part of, as a CI, now let's say, how would this unfold? Let's say Amherst PD, which of course works closely with UMPD, if Amherst PD suspects that someone is compromised within UMPD, and they're using Maura as a CI to uncover this, is it not a case of Maura just being a chatty employee and not paying attention and people getting through? Is she doing it on purpose? Because why the calls to Domino's? See, if there weren't those calls to Domino's, it might be more like, we might say it's more of a possibility that Maura Murray is simply an absent-minded college student overloaded with a nursing program. But these calls to Domino's after close, and again, this is the Domino's she's allegedly using a stolen credit card number. None of that sting op makes sense. I mean, they're spending how many thousands of dollars for a sting op on a 2-digit alleged unauthorized charge? Because if this credit card number was a pass-around credit card and someone told Maura Murray that it could be used to order food, then either that same someone is mad at Maura I mean, these are college students. I mean, it could be a boy issue. It could just be jealousy. It could be something else. Who knows what it could be? Or if it's a third party who intentionally gave out the number and told Maura that it could be used as a pass around card, and it actually couldn't, again, to set Maura up. A lot of these weird people who just can't think logically just automatically jump to Maura Murray's a horrible person stealing food. I mean, it's just really weird how... See, if there were none of these other weird issues, then yes, you could say that's a very strong possibility. But you have dorm room mugshots and sting ops and all of this. I mean, there's just this mountain of oddities. If that mountain of oddities did not exist, then yes, we would just simply say, yeah, Maura Murray probably used a stolen card and she was just trying to, get free food or whatever. But none of it makes any sense. So it seems, just based on this Tower of Babel coincidence stack, that she was either being set up or this is all part of some kind of sham to just set up some kind of CI operation. So if there is a CI operation and Amherst knows that someone within UMPD is compromised, how would this all play out? And then if Maura Murray is getting fired from the UMPD job, she can't be a CI anymore, so she might be flipping out with Amherst. Did she ask Billy for help with this situation? Or is it far darker? Is it a far darker situation? If Billy Roush is the bad guy, Maura Murray's going through all this horrible, just horrible life drama while also being a CI. I mean, that's a lot to handle. That's just a lot to handle. But continuing the post here, if you look at Maura's phone records from the night before, February 4th, there is a similar pattern of calls starting after 8 p.m. 8:17 incoming call, 37 minutes. Call to Julie at 10:28 p.m. and then Kathleen, 2 minutes. 10:31 p.m. call home, 36 minutes. 11:45 p.m. to Bill Roush, 1 minute, and then an incoming call. Midnight call to Domino's Pizza, then another call to Domino's at 12:10 a.m. We'll likely never know, but it would be interesting to know if Maura worked a shift at the security desk on Wednesday night. Perhaps someone noticed her on her cell that night and saw her on it again Thursday night, and UMPD decided to have Karen escort her out. It could be that Karen Mayotte wasn't fully aware of the situation, but I'm sure if Maura was fired, then Karen Mayotte knew soon enough. Other posts here. Would Karen still be covering up so many years later and not affiliated with UMass now? Would she go on a podcast and deliberately mess up the Thursday Times the way she did? Good question. If UMPD coached her to lie about something in an official statement, then if she ever told the truth years later, they could say in court that she filed a false police report. Unlikely and rare, but possible. Also, if this case turned into a criminal one, she could be in trouble if her podcast points don't align. And here's another follow-up post. Maybe the whole point of her going on the podcast was to muddy things up more about the Thursday timeline and downplay that Thursday was important, or maybe even to reinforce the suicide theory with Maura being catatonic, even though it looks like a few hours later she was ordering pizza. Yeah, I mean, muddying the waters, I mean, again, Billy Roush trained in psychological operations in the military. The coincidence theorists love to ignore that. I mean, that's it. Psychological operations are this guy's job. Now, again, that doesn't mean he's a bad guy. He could be a good guy, but either way, psychological operations are his job. If there is FBI or upper agency involvement, I mean, Karen Mayotte would basically be at their whim, she would be at their whim. I mean, what could she do? If they told her to peddle a narrative, she's going to peddle the damn narrative. Or if she doesn't really know what the truth is, I mean, would she just try to be a good person and go on, but she's genuinely confused? I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is all very bizarre. Other posts here. When Billy Roush West Point buddy Bob, a.k.a. Sam, spoke on the Missing Maura Murray podcast, he mentioned a few times that the Billy Roush-Maura relationship was on the rocks. And that was one of the reasons Bill Roush was calling Kate. I wonder if this was something Billy Roush divulged to him at some point, and that was really the truth, and not the happy engaged to be engaged narrative Billy Roush and his mother put up. Agree, the narrative had to stay on track, but it's possible that Sam/Bob was telling the truth on that part, which makes the contacts between Maura and Billy Roush very dubious, leading from the week prior. One of the reasons, too, for mentioning the relationship with Maura being on the rocks could have been Billy Roush's way of getting out in front of what could be revealed on the Oxygen show that would come later. I imagine after all those years of his mother Sharon pumping up the happy, happy narrative between him and Maura, he could have confided in his old West Point buddy that it wasn't the truth and that the relationship at the time wasn't all that great as it was made out to be. Plus, by the time the Oxy show did premiere, Sharon was no longer in the picture, and Maura's sisters, who did both appear on the show, didn't exactly give him ringing endorsement. That is true. I mean, who knows what the Roushes fear getting out? Perhaps the Roushes feared that some more truth would come out just because of the way the Oxygen show was produced. And, I mean, again, just that level of uncertainty of what they could dig up. Yeah, curious. It almost seemed as though Bill Roush was untouchable by many as being in any way associated with her disappearance, even tangibly. Which appears odd because 9 times out of 10, a current or former boyfriend is the prime suspect in a woman's disappearance. Avoiding this, like many have done, is extremely bizarre. Not because Billy Roush is guilty or not, but because it's normal to assume this primary scenario. I've wondered before if the Murrays had the impression, right or wrong, that Bill and or the Roush family had some connections that could help with the case and they didn't want to get on their bad side and risk losing those. That's a good point. We know that the Roushes had a family friend that worked for the FBI. Sharon seemed to have her share of connections, both from her friend of the ARC to Ohio law enforcement. These might have not been the most helpful resources, clearly, but it might have been more than the Murray family had at the time. Now that it's been so long and Julie has likely established her own networks, the desire to take advantage of what the Roush family had to offer would likely not seem as critical. This is actually an incredibly good point that explains quite a lot. Now, the other thing I just want to touch upon again is the whole Todd Landry Red Cross manufactured narrative, because if Sharon Roush herself has some kind of friend at the Red Cross, she would know that that call didn't come from the Red Cross, that for whatever reason New Hampshire State Police wanted to manufacture this narrative that it couldn't have been Maura that called Bill Roush. It's really weird. Really, really weird. More posts here. Yes, this 100% is what I'm thinking. I mean, who the heck calls up their old college professor buddy, Bob McDonald, and gets him on board with his wife? Also, with cases before or since, Bill Roush has got to be the only one, or it's a darn short list, that got a West Point buddy speaking for him on a podcast and a major TV show. I suppose his mom is still towing the line on the ID program in 2009. Year later wasn't enough. I get the impression that Bill Roush and company thought that they could better handle the situation involving Maura's disappearance than Maura's own family. Almost as if they wanted to totally control everything, good or bad, better than what the Murrays or Fred were capable of. Another post here. Maura's sister Julie was on a podcast not too long ago, and I distinctly recall her saying that Maura had a boyfriend at the time. What? Yeah, if somebody could narrow that down, I don't. She's stating that Maura had a boyfriend at the time she went missing who was not Bill Roush. Okay, she certainly wouldn't have been using the cell phone provided by Sharon or the Roush family to communicate with the other guy. Julie did say in the past that when she was stationed in Korea in 2003, her main communication with Maura was via AOL Instant Messenger, which, as we know, was prominent at the time. I've seen a few quotes from both Maura's friends from Hanson, West Point, and UMass that Maura had a bit of a secretive side to her. I could certainly see this being a frustration to Billy Roush and Sharon, and probably the reason they wanted her on their phone plan. Maybe the reason UMPD was checking her computer Wednesday, February 11th, or why Billy Roush was sent to her dorm the same day. Maybe a person in Maura's life at the time of her disappearance, unbeknownst to her friends and family, could be the missing clue here. On the flip side, could Sharon letting the phone records be made public be a way of letting people know they only had control over who Maura contacted using their phone plan? I mean, one way or another, it really does seem like AOL Instant Messenger. I mean, there would be some critical information there, one way or the other, regardless of what's going on. Other post here, when Rick Graves went on Tim and Lance, he mentioned that Fred and the family talked about Maura having a new boyfriend. However, he alludes towards a possible UMass teacher. What? I do not remember this. Alright, it's time for a mind shock. On the Missing Maura Murray podcast, episode 29, with Rick Graves, he does drop this potential bombshell. Clearly, it must have come from somewhere, so let's listen to what he has to say here. It is around the between the 35 and the 36-minute mark. He starts talking about the cabin and how something was brought up that Maura Murray knew somebody with a cabin. They might have been going up to the cabin, so this might be separate from the outing cabin. But he touches upon Haas and other things, so let's listen here.
So what I'm getting is at that time, it was just sort of assumed that Maura was taken by a dirtbag.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was very highly assumed. Yeah. Fred said it all along that that's what he believes. He believes somebody grabbed her. Now, in my opinion, now, I want to bring this up before I forget about it, is this cabin thing that came up with a UMass cabin. Now, I was thinking a lot about it. See, Maura didn't know that area that she crashed a car in. She never went off that exit before with her father. When they did all their hiking, they got off of 93 in Lincoln, New Hampshire. They never got off of that exit. And if she was going out towards the Lincoln area, she would have gotten off that exit that she knew, out towards the Lincoln area. But she got off this other exit off of 91. So my belief, I strongly believe, that she was going to someplace out in that area. And she didn't know that area. She would have known the area from Lost River over to Lincoln. Lost River is on Route 112. She would have known that area from there on, but either she got off of that exit because the car wasn't running right, but I highly believe she got off of that exit for someplace in that area. She was definitely headed there. And that UMass cabin makes perfect sense.
Okay, so you didn't know about the UMass cabin back then, and this is news to you just recently as it came to us.
Yes. Yeah.
And so Fred didn't know about it either. No one had ever searched that area, to your knowledge.
I don't believe so. I don't think I ever heard that UMass cabin. We did hear of some guy that she might have been seeing down there had a cabin up in that area, but there was no way to put it together. No way to find out who it was that had a cabin up in that area, and I don't even know where I came with that information. I believe it might have been through a family member, but
that Maura might have been seeing somebody who had a cabin up there.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, it wasn't known where it was or anything. So. And knowing where this cabin is now, we did searches down that road. We had been down that road a lot of times.
Yeah, it's interesting that it was never brought up to you guys who were searching, because it seems pretty obvious right there with that connection that the dots should have been connected, that could have been the cabin that she was going to, if that's what she was doing, meeting a new boyfriend or a new friend or something like that.
How we'll go back to the searching for a year consistently, that information was never even accidentally stumbled upon. But again, we're talking back in 2004 and 2005 and 2006, the information wasn't at their fingertips the way it is now, but still, maybe the police knew about it and just didn't. It's just frustrating, right? I mean, it's it was right there. It was right there the whole time.
Yeah. And so do you believe that Maura's old assistant track coach, Hussein Baghdadi, was the man that one of the family members mentioned that she might have been seeing?
Well, yeah, it was spoken upon about that she might have been seeing somebody from school, that she liked somebody from school. But I'm not sure if anybody knew who that really was at that time.
But you don't believe it was someone other than that, or there's no reason to believe it was a different guy.
I think back then I had thought it was a teacher.
Oh, really?
But yeah, but
Yeah, but that's kind of similar.
yeah,
Yeah.
assistant coach, teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was actually, like I said, an hour before we talked, I was just researching a few things, and on Renner's blog, and this guy I'll call Hoss, I guess that's what they nickname him, Hoss.
Yep.
But I guess Renner talked to him, and this guy said she was also seeing other people from the track team. It bugs me because that's my feeling now is these people need to be really talked to. I'm amazed nobody's come forward on anything. Even Haas, I guess. Did you guys try to contact him at all?
Yeah, we haven't had any luck, and I know that Renner had tried as well after the news story about the UMass cabin came out, and I don't believe Haas has gotten back to Renner, but it's hard to tell how much he gave law enforcement, because I believe James Renner doesn't think that he told law enforcement everything he told Renner. I have no idea how much they talked to him. We can't know unless we talk to him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's my feeling right now is with his cabin, that sheds a whole different light on everything.
Okay, so that was quite mind-shocking. So for whatever reason, he believes it was a teacher, not a track coach. So is this just his misremembering here? Or did someone give him some other information regarding a possible teacher at UMass? So let's look at some other posts here on the Mindshock subreddit, referencing none other than Alden Olson. Alden Olson had posted about a Mitch. It was Maura and Mitch. There was a teacher named Mitch I had found, not sure where that name came from. Other posts here, I remember that and never knew what he meant or who that was. Alden had a pulse on things going on near there. And of course, for those that don't know, Alden Olson worked at a Walmart in Hadley, not far from the site of the Hadley accident. I mean, all very bizarre, and he's also an alum of UMass, and apparently so is Fred Murray, and a bunch of other individuals connected to the case. So I actually couldn't find the original source info with Maura and Mitch, but I did find some cryptic posts on topics. And I went over these quite some time ago, but I didn't go over these specifically. So this is from the Franconia forum, page 28, post 551. You might have to look at some archives. I don't know if these are currently online right now. Posted May 29th, 2008. I just copy-pasted this from an article, A Manpower Shortage Could Have Hindered the Abilities. So this is supposedly not by Alden Olson. It's posted by someone from Minneapolis. A manpower shortage could have hindered the abilities of the Haverhill Police. Due to sick time, training, and vacancies, the 7-man department was down to as few as 3 full-time officers and a chief at the time of Maura's accident, town records show. Then I was thinking about Maura seeming intoxicated or not. I don't think her car heater was working properly, and she was shivering. If school bus driver and officer thought Maura had been drinking, they would have spent more time looking for her that night. But they didn't do night searches normally, they said, and took back Thus, she seemed impaired due to alcohol statement made by, I think, school bus driver to cover their butts for waiting till noon the next day to put out a BOL. Endangered female. There was an empty pop bottle that contained wine found right outside the car door. The rest of it was in the back seat. Some splashed on the dash, the seat, along with a spider crack in the windshield, but also found was a beer can. Maura did not like beer. I know it's anybody's guess where that might have come from, but I thought I'd mention it. Also, in this topics, apparently they're posting Alden Olson's address here, which is weird. Or was that Alden posted his own address here? What? A follow-up post here. Alden, this was not necessary to post in the event that you thought I would have. Okay, that's weird. There's a poster here by the name of Oh My from Vermont. So, Oh My stating this. I suppose Claude is... I'm guessing this is sarcasm. I suppose Claude is innocent. They're referring to Claude Moulton here. Since he killed his brother at a young age, number one. Number two, there's a deathbed confession from Claude's other brother who died from cancer that Claude killed Maura. Number three, the rag in the exhaust pipe was put there to stop the car from starting, but it had an exhaust leak, I guess, because it ran a little but not well. 4, Claude, I am sure, put a drug in Maura's drink in Woodsville so he could abduct her. 5, Claude had another woman involved. She is the one who talked to the bus driver begging not to call the police department. 6, the responding officer, Sergeant Smith, had snow to track these individuals but did not. 7, 8, 9, 10. I beg to differ with you, sir. I'm just telling the truth. You cannot handle it. That's all. So here's where it gets crazy. The name Mitch is mentioned here. Also posted by Oh My. This is May 30th, 2008. Okay, now the arrest list is as follows from top to bottom. Okay, so they name 2 people here from the Barge Inn and Claude Moulton. Couple other people, and then Mitchell, who we call Mitch the Expletive, rhymes with Mitch, that has the greenhouses and the abandoned veggie stand. Red, the Hell's Angel, who chopped Maura's body up, a buddy of Mitch the Expletive. Wow, this is the first time I've heard this theory. There's a guy named Red who's a Hell's Angel. He chopped Maura's body up. Mitch the Expletive was involved. And also Claude Moulton and 3 other people from the Barge Inn. Interesting. Also an individual of Jetstar and all employees. All the police in Haverhill, New Hampshire for withholding evidence. A couple of Troop F patrolmen. That's a good start. But there are more, and they all know who killed Maura. And they are all hiding out. You never see them out in public, and they are harboring and protecting each other in a huge conspiracy to commit murder, and have done so before. Mitch, the Expletive, has been killing people for years and molesting little girls in Haverhill, New Hampshire. It's time to find the bones and teeth, and that Mitch, the Expletive, has been throwing off the train car from here to Florida. What the heck? Okay, I don't know if anybody's heard this theory before. Okay, so for those that don't make much of Claude Moulton and his connection to Jetstar, and apparently it's like a car, they crush cars there. It's some kind of car operation, possibly also involving some trucking or whatever, some salvage yard issues. Who knows what that place is? But Jetstar, Claude Moulton is rumored to be a silent partner and possibly working with this Mitch character. Now, for those that think that Claude Moulton is no longer a suspect, as recent as February 7th, 2020, Fred Murray mentioned on WATD Radio 95.9 in Hanson. There was an interview with Fred and Curtis Murray. And Fred said they were looking into someone who was a suspect early on and makes reference to a car crusher. Now, this is curious. What could he be talking about other than Jetstar and Claude Moulton? So is there renewed interest, at least on the part of Fred Murray? I mean, it's unclear what law enforcement is doing, obviously. But yeah, it's really weird. It's really weird because this connection just does not seem to be able to stay gone. I mean, he's bringing it up again. Fred Murray's bringing it up again in 2020. For those that don't know, the whole Claude Moulton bloody knife situation, this bloody knife is turned into a police station and then it disappears. Nobody knows where it is. Nothing's ever talked about again. The brother makes a deathbed confession that Claude Moulton is indeed responsible. But regarding this Mitch character, this guy also works at Jetstar with a car crusher. This guy's name is thrown into the mix. Now, I don't know. Is Mitch that popular of a name, Mitch or Mitchell? I mean, are these people just huge Baywatch fans? Or what's going on in the Haverhill area? This Mitch character is... And apparently there's also another Mitch. Or is it the same Mitch? Is the Mitch that's a teacher at UMass the same Mitch that works for Jetstar? I mean, who knows what's going on here? This is all very, very bizarre. But let's go all the way back to the Maura Murray Mindshock subreddit. Alden Olson made reference to Maura and Mitch. Now, again, unclear whether this is the Mitch at UMass or this is the Mitch at Jetstar connected to Claude Moulton. But going back to this, people are stating here, I remember that, never knew what he meant or who that was. Alden had a pulse on things going on near there. Alden Olson, just again, another curious character who just pulls just randomness out of the ether. And yet when you do some digging, it turns out it's not randomness. He always has things, just little pieces of evidence to support even the most wackiest theories, but it's not just all from the ether. He's got actual legitimate pieces of evidence. Now, what the conclusions are from them, that's of course another matter. Continuing on here, I never knew he'd pointed at Amherst PD directly until I ran across it in a recent post. I think so, UMPD, Amherst, and Hadley PD. But I think PD are covering and manufacturing for the act of her abduction. Did Hadley not send responders to keep information contained? But the impetus is somewhere else, maybe UMass directly, track, CI, medical, nursing, gallery, and or outside parties involved or recruited into or combined effort, a concerted conspiracy. Not an accident, but a planned abduction. Nothing new. I believe some of these people are lying, and she was abducted as early as Sunday afternoon, but before the emails were sent. When was Maura abducted from Amherst? I'll say that whatever happened has happened here is so extreme and deep, the truth can never be exposed. I believe that it's hard to find the words to describe that meaning. Other posts here, I don't disagree with this. It is important to note that there was no DWI test at that Hadley accident. The cops have been silent, nor were any standard SOP protocol kept with calling for EMTs and fire to that scene. The cadet also has been quiet regarding that scene. What are they hiding there? Fred could have sued them for not following protocol and letting his daughter ride off from the scene without being checked for head or other injuries by hitting the guardrail. They're complicit, period. It's truly surprising that Hadley PD didn't give Maura a sobriety test at that scene. On the report, they listed her as the driver, so I would assume law enforcement first thought upon arriving at the scene at that hour to a car crash involving a 21-year-old on a Saturday night next to UMass would be a DWI. Fred mentioned them drinking before stopping at the liquor store, and then I believe it was Sarah who said they drank malt liquor with wine all night before Sarah apparently passed out. It would be SOP for law enforcement to give someone a sobriety test if they suspected DWI. Maura would have had a right to refuse one, but still, it's for the person's own safety, even if a DWI meant possibly ruining a young woman's academics. Could you imagine if something happened to Maura in the tow truck or at the hotel after she was dropped off? Wasn't anyone concerned about having a tow driver drop a young UMass student off at a hotel rather than her dorm? What if she had a concussion and went to sleep? What if Fred wasn't staying there and it was someone else waiting for her? So many things seem so wrong with how that was handled. Very true. It's why it's been silenced, including the cadet that was there. No one wants any of that to have gotten out. Fred could have sued their asses off. Funny that no one did. Way too late now. It was way over even when Renner was the first trying to contact Ruddock. Silence. I never understood why Fred let all of this Amherst stuff go. Also, he didn't originally believe Maura ran off from the scene in New Hampshire and was shivering and hypothermic out all night in the cold. He hears that his Saturn was found in New Hampshire and no contact from Maura for 24 hours, and he waited to drive up there the next morning. Not a crisis by his actions. And Fred, if he was angry with Maura in any way after she crashed his new Toyota, getting the call about the Saturn being found in New Hampshire probably added to his annoyance. At that point, he was probably driving a rental. His insurance company probably couldn't confirm how much of the damage to his Toyota he would have to cover. Maura hadn't sent in the forms. And sure, Cecil had to inform him the Saturn was impounded. I think it's possible Fred was pretty annoyed and not thinking Maura was in crisis on Tuesday night. I mean, I don't know about annoyed, though, but if Fred was in on it, the plan to dump the Saturn, if this was connected to the Brigitte Vassy hit and run, and perhaps part of the plan wasn't having Maura drive up the Saturn. Somebody else took the Saturn up there. Possibly even a day or two or a week or two prior to this whole situation. So, because then, of course, he wouldn't be panicked or alarmed in that situation. Some more posts here. We know Fred dropped Maura Murray off at around 1 p.m. on Sunday. Actually, do we really know that, though? I mean, CCTV footage from UMass security would confirm that, but this is Fred's words at least anyway. So so you would think Fred knows what Maura Murray looks like, unlike Butch Atwood, for example. So he stated he dropped her off 1 p.m. on Sunday. After that, no person that we know of physically saw Maura Murray. There are reports that someone saw her with a bag full of beer cans and that Sarah either worked at the gallery or ate dinner with her on Sunday and gave her phone back to her, but these facts are pretty sketchy. We have to rely on the ATM photos from Monday, but in my opinion, there is something off with the whole ATM scenario. Why can't they just show the whole thing and blur out other cars or people? Not like any other case. You would think they would use the ATM video to verify what she last looked like and what she was wearing right before she disappeared forever, but no, they wait over a decade and release it to a TV show. Big red flag. And I can't state this enough times. I mean, the coincidence theorists, I don't know if most of them are just that severely mentally disabled that they don't understand these basic simple concepts. But early on, there was no talk of a criminal case by law enforcement anyway. They stated Maura Murray went to Mexico, etc., etc. So why can't they release the ATM footage immediately? Because later on, the excuse was used, it might compromise the case, whatever. But even though that's the same thing in all these other missing person cases where the ATM footage is released either immediately or within, I don't know, whatever, days, weeks, months. But, I mean, over a decade, I mean, that's insanity. Especially, and even if it was a criminal case at that point, I mean, so much time has gone past. But early on, I mean, coincidence theorists, narrative theorists, for some reason they just have, I don't know if they just truly are mentally disabled and they're just, for some reason, they're just really attracted to this particular case. But early on, there is no criminal case. There's no evidence a crime has occurred. I mean, this was stated many times by law enforcement. This is a DUI walkaway where law enforcement is making comments about her going to Mexico, and they can't release. Why not release the ATM video if she's just a runaway? I mean, it's just really weird. Really weird. more conversation here regarding Sarah Alfieri and whether or not she saw Maura Murray that Sunday. I wish there would have been more clarity to this. If Maura did work at the art gallery on Sunday, I would have to think UMass would have been able to confirm that. She was employed there, so I assume there was some sort of employee attendance record, so that person would have been paid for their respective hours. Also, I would think Sarah would have some recollection of the last time she saw her friend. She partied with her Saturday night, and so I would assume she would remember seeing Maura the next day if she indeed did. Also, if you haven't checked out the episode on the art gallery, supposedly that the art gallery boss had a red truck and he would give employees rides in the red truck. Again, feel free to check out that episode. I mean, there's no shortage of coincidences in the Maura Murray case. Sarah implies she spoke to Maura when she stated that Maura never mentioned the accident. Julie recently said on TikTok, I believe, that Maura worked the gallery until 8 p.m., but I don't know where she got that. It's so weird that this can't be nailed down. The whole case is unreal. Maura posts, I didn't know Julie said this about the art gallery. Thanks. Interesting if true. I do recall Julie saying in a podcast a while back that there are things law enforcement has told her that she hasn't made public. Maybe she let confirmation Maura working the gallery slip out. My other thought is that Julie had once said that her main communication with Maura at the time was AOL Instant Messenger. Perhaps they messaged Sunday or Monday and Maura said she worked the art gallery on Sunday. And if that's how that info was ascertained, then it might not have been Maura speaking on the Instant Messenger. Because if someone has access to her computer, I mean, basically anybody with her password would even be able to log into her AOL from any other location. They don't even have to be on her computer. Another post here. It's odd because I really believe Julie says some things that may have been assumed over the years. She never gave it one thought, for example, that someone else took the Saturn on February 9th. Many other things too. So until I get some 100% proof that Maura worked at the art gallery on Sunday, I'm still doubtful. More posts here. Not sure what kind of investigation UMass did, but I would assume they had ample resources to determine Maura's whereabouts on campus in the days leading up to her disappearance. There were all those security cameras, and it would have been fairly easy to determine if Maura worked at the art gallery on Sunday. I mean, wouldn't she have to clock in, sign in, have a boss account for her, a shift, etc.? UMPD was made aware that Maura was missing as early as Tuesday night when Cecil called them and asked them that they check her room. UMPD was on her computer Wednesday, and at some point that same day, Billy Roush was in Maura's dorm room as well. The next day, Karen Mayotte gave her statement to UMPD, and on Friday, UMPD detectives spoke to her nursing class. It appears UMPD had a vested interest in Maura right away. Of course, factoring the UMPD cadet at the Headley accident, and for some reason UMPD wanting to know about the stop at the liquor store as well. Another response, I wonder how involved UMPD gets with every single student out of 30,000 on campus to such detail extent over a DWI walkaway. Although it's very suspect that no one seems to connect the dots that Maura was employed by the UMass campus police. It's always nursing student or chemistry, and never that she got a paycheck from the police department. This is possibly the concern that they knew about. I agree, it's still oddly unknown, but that unknown makes it intriguing as to why. The art gallery was very close to the dorms, but there's no phone activity until later that evening. Sarah could have easily returned the phone earlier. The gallery hours, I believe, was 2 to 5 on Sunday. Unsure why she'd be there until 8 per Julie, except one artist's show ended the prior week and maybe they moved around artwork. If Sarah didn't have the phone, then who did? Did Maura go retrieve her phone or never get it back? Outside of her call, if it was Maura using the cell, to her dad Fred at 11:26 p.m. Sunday night, I would think she may have never gotten her cell phone back. I'm still up in the air as to if she ever did. That call to Fred stands out because it's at such a late hour on a Sunday night. I wonder if Fred recalls it. If Fred was drinking and very tired and him being more old school, early to bed, early to rise, then I see it as being a long shot, making the point of Maura getting her cell back as not likely. If true, it puts someone else in a pre-planning mode to silence Maura. There would be work records of her working Sunday with Sarah. If Sarah actually returned Maura's cell phone, then she had only to walk 100 feet to the dorm right next to hers. I don't think she worked, only because no one has come to say 100%, and she was awake all night with the Hadley accident and getting to her dad's, that she only maybe had a few hours of sleep, as Fred said they spoke at 10:30 a.m. on Sunday about the accident. There has never been any reason for blurring out people or cars who are captured out in public. All news shows and everything has images of people coming out of bars, restaurants, shopping malls, stores, out on public streets. Public is public, and all and everything captured by anyone with any camera is all 1000% legal and can be shown to anyone. Only if there's money involved does it get a bit sticky. Other than that, it's fair game. We see it every day on TV. The only time things are blurred out is a personal decision by the provider, but they are not obliged to do so. But that was the excuse given was that by Art and Maggie or whoever? They said they couldn't show the full ATM video. I mean, just complete nonsense, of course. Okay, so, wow. Okay, so on the ID program, Sharon Rausch made this statement. When Maura went missing, there were many things that were said. One of the things was that Maura has run off with another boyfriend. Billy was confronted with this, and he said, I hope she has. If she is with another young man, then she is safe. It's also curious that he said another young man. So if it was an old man or an older man, she wouldn't be safe? I'm not sure what Sharon was getting at here, but perhaps they were aware Maura has been seeing someone else at the time. Sharon has also said that there was a rocky time back in 2002 when they were on the outs. This was when Maura started at UMass and when the McDonalds had their wedding, in which Maura did not go, and Billy Rausch met his actual future wife-to-be. So Sharon was very well aware that if her son was seeing others, then Maura may have been too, which was frowned upon by her. Wow, okay, so we went down quite a few rabbit holes. But where do we go from here? I mean, there's a lot of loose ends and all these different rabbit holes that lead off into other rabbit holes. This is truly a unique case. It's a coincidence theorist dream, that's for sure. But what really happened? Because if there was another boyfriend, and where do all these rumors about Mitch come from? Where did all the rumors of the teacher, not the assistant track coach, come from? How come none of these timelines can be verified? They can't even verify whether Maura Murray worked at her job the day before her disappearance and if she got her cell phone back and when. I mean, this is why this case is not like any other. But believe it or not, there's even more information to go over in the Maura Murray case. I mean, there is a lot to unravel here. So, I mean, hopefully the case will be solved before we get to episode 100, because this is getting way up there. But again, it's unlike any other case, and Mindshock is all about being comprehensive and exhaustive. So other cases obviously not numbering anywhere near this number here in the Maura Murray series. But hope you guys enjoyed another edition of Mindshock True Crime. If you enjoy the podcast, want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube for access to exclusive streams and chats. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case, topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.